being here. Truly appreciate the fact that you take the time to be here. This is definitely an important topic that we have to discuss this morning. And again, we definitely need all of community involvement on this. I want to break down an event that occurred last night. And I think without question it has national attention based on the circumstances of where the event actually occurred and based upon the incidences that have been in the city of Aurora in the past in and around this same location. Last night, right at about 8:45 p.m. At 1258 Dallas Street, victims, it was a male and a female, they were accosted by approximately 13 to 15 armed individuals. 13 of those were males and 3 of those were possibly females at this time is what we were thinking. They were taken to an adjoining apartment complex against their will at that same Dallas complex, and they ended up at 1268 Dallas. Again, this was the same complex, same area. The victims were held against their will. They were actually bound, both the male and the female. They were pistol whipped, they were beat, they were victimized, they were terrorized. During this entire process, some of the suspects left that apartment complex at 1268 Dallas and went over to the victim's apartment, which is located at 1258 Dallas, and actually burglarized and took over that apartment and took out about items of value that belonged to our victims. And subsequently, they came back. Right around 1:50 in the morning, our victims, with communication and with courage, basically informed the suspects that they would not notify the police if they were released, and could they please be released. Our victims were subsequently released. They left at that complex right around 1:50. They went to their vehicle and they drove to a friend's house located in another area of the city of Aurora. Once at that location, the victims notified the police right at about 0227. Our officers immediately responded to that location. They made contact with the victims. They got initial information about what had occurred, how it occurred, when it occurred, and where it occurred. And then ultimately, simultaneously, additional officers, Aurora police officers, responded to the actual crime scene. They locked down the apartment complex located at 1268 Dallas. They began a systematic search, and they ultimately made contacts with several different apartments, and they ultimately, in one apartment, located about 15 individuals that were inside there. Based upon the identifications, based upon what we know at this time, it appears that most of those individuals in that one apartment were involved in this terrible, terrible crime. Right now, our officers and our detectives are in the process of doing due diligence based on the severity of this issue, and they are writing search warrants for all the locations involved. And as well, they are also ensuring that all investigation aspects are covered in every level. Right now on scene, I am utilizing any resource that I can to verify who these individuals are, who these suspects are, what their involvement is with this crime, and what their identities are. I am using presently Department of Homeland Security, I am using HSI, and I'm also using ICE to help identify who these suspects are and what actions were they involved in. The victims at this time are located at the hospital. They are being treated for non-life-threatening injuries at this point, and hopefully they'll be released soon. Our investigators are working consistently and constantly with them. And again, I want to let everybody know we are not going to rest until we verify every individual in this incident is in custody. Every individual who mistreated another human being the way these victims were treated is in custody, and we will use, again, every resource at our ability to do that. We have proactively been focused on that apartment complex. As everybody here knows, and as the nation knows, this complex is an incredibly problematic complex. It is an incredibly crime-riddled complex that I think we have been focusing on, the city of Aurora has been focusing on, and without question, attention will not stop until every individual that victimizes somebody else will be held accountable or be removed from that complex. So again, that is something that we are truly focused on. Another thing that I want to say, and then I'll open it up for questions, but I want to acknowledge the courage of the victims involved in this case. Again, I think that is something that is truly amazing. These individuals that are the victims, at this point, it appears that they are immigrants that came, again, with the Venezuelan community that was brought here. The fact that they stepped forward, I think it shows, again, the incredible amount of courage that they had. Unfortunately, when you look at this type of activity, especially when you consider all of the individuals involved in this are most likely Venezuelan, most of them are without question or most likely, we believe at this point, undocumented or immigrants to the city of Aurora. Again, unfortunately, these individuals, like many gangs and many individuals involved in this type of activity, they victimize their own race and their own ethnicity. And the reason they do that is because they are easy victims. Because they know, because of their status, they will not come forward to the police. They know that they can mistreat them. They know that they can do things to them that they couldn't do to anybody else in the community based upon their fear of what the ramifications would be if law enforcement gets involved in that. So for the fact that they stepped forward and made this decision to call us, again, I appreciate that, and I cannot tell them how much I am thankful that they had the courage to do that. I also want to make sure that you understand something that we have been trying to do since the beginning of this, and that is have outreach with that community particularly. I want to make sure that anybody, whether documented or undocumented, knows that they can call law enforcement and we will respond and we will serve them the best that we possibly can. There is no place in this country, there is no place in this city where somebody should be victimized or mistreated based upon their documentation status. And I want to ensure everybody, again, here at Aurora PD, we have taken huge steps to make sure we reach out to the ethnic community, make sure we reach out to the populations that reside in this incredibly diverse city, making sure that we reach out to the new immigrants who have come to this city to know that they can move forward and they can have contact with us, and we will support them and we will serve them based upon their victimization and not on their documentation status. And that's one thing I will continue to do. I also want to say again, this department, we are incredibly transparent about what unfolded, and I think your support and your being here allows for that transparency to occur. I've had over 35 years of law enforcement experience. I've worked in some of the most complex neighborhoods and complex communities in the country. And every area, every place I've been, every major city, which Aurora is a major city, has areas that everybody knows are problematic, has areas that everybody knows crime occurs and victimization occurs. And every department, every law enforcement agency in every city struggles how to fight that and how to deal with that. And that's what we have. We have a problematic location in the city of Aurora, and it was without question these apartments that have been in the media's attention and in the community's attention for years, or at least a year. And again, we are not going to tolerate it. We are going to address it. We are going to continue to focus on it. We have proactively been working on this. I got a sheet in front of me that shows the number of arrests that we have made on 11/20, on 12/3, on 12/10, on 12/13. We have continually taken individuals that have been involved in criminal activity in and around that complexes into custody, and that's something that we are not going to stop doing. We are also, as a city, focusing on the long-term projections of how we can impact this city. How can we look at that complex and how can we say, okay, this is a criminal nuisance location. This is a venue which is incredibly problematic. This is a location that needs to be put into receivership. All of those things are presently going through on the city level, and it's something that we will not stop. So again, for everybody here, for everybody who is listening to this, I want to assure you that the Aurora Police Department, we will not tolerate this type of behavior by anybody. We will not allow the victimization of our community members, again, whether documented or undocumented, to occur. I think historically, this has been a very problematic location based upon, again, and I'm not pointing fingers. Law enforcement is completely apolitical. But when this started, again, when you look at the history of this, again, I had a discussion with an individual from the White House, and that occurred back on September the 23rd, I believe. And that person basically told me that, hey, once these immigrants get across the border, that's all we really care about. And to me, that's a problem. That's a huge problem, because we have individuals that come to a country, they get dropped off into a community, they have absolutely no infrastructure, they have absolutely no support, they have absolutely no guidance from the federal government about what to do, how to survive. And this is the ramifications of that activity. This is the ramifications of not monitoring what's occurring, how it's occurring, and who it is occurring to. And so Aurora, we are now in the process, as many other cities throughout this nation, of trying to pick up the pieces of an incredibly bad system that was in place. But I want to again let everyone know that we will focus on this issue. We are not deterred by what's occurring. I extend my sincere apologies to the victims. I am so sorry that they had to go through this, as I feel for every victim of crime. The fact that another human could treat another human this way is absolutely appalling. The fact that these people had to question whether or not to call the police or not call the police is upsetting to me. And I'm so thankful that they did. So I just want to close, again, the Aurora Police Department, the city of Aurora. We will not stop until every person that is involved in this incident is held accountable. We are not going to front load or make assumptions. We are going to do our due diligence. We are going to spend the time to work with our law enforcement partners at both a federal, state, and local level to ensure that we have the right individuals that were involved and that we are holding them accountable in whatever manner or fashion that takes. And that is something that we are going to do not only for tonight's unfortunate event, but any event that is impacting our community. We are not going to stop until the people that offend someone, to the people that victimize someone, to the people that victimize someone are held accountable. Now with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that you have.
Would you say that these victims were tortured, and can you comment on the motives for that?
I would say anybody that's held against their will, I would say anybody that's bound is tortured. That was not a decision that they made. It was the fact of the incident. Again, they were pistol whipped, they were beat, they were mistreated. One of the male was actually stabbed. He had a stab wound. So does that fall in the category of torture for me? Yeah, it does.
Chief, you use the word gang. Do you believe these are members of TDA?
Again, I can guarantee you, I will give you my expertise and my knowledge of what I believe. This is without question a gang incident. I don't know which gang they are affiliated with yet. It might be TDA. It could not be TDA. We will determine that and we will find that out. But right now, as I said before, it is incredibly hard to identify specifically as TDA because there is no specific markers, there is no specific identifiers. Unless they self-identify as TDA, I am not going to say that they are TDA. But what I will say is based on the actions that I saw, based upon how this event unfolded, this is 100% gang activity. It's gang activity at Dallas. There are Venezuelans involved. So again, there is a high assumption that they may be affiliated with the TDA gang. But again, I am not going to say 100% positively until that is validated and verified. And that investigation, again, this occurred last night. We rolled up on this at 6 o'clock. We have been dealing with this since 2 o'clock last night. So again, this is still very initial information. We are still doing search warrants on all of the locations back at that apartment complex, and that we have not had that signed. We are working with our district attorneys now, so there's a lot that's still ongoing. So the investigation that's done, we're going to have more conversations about this incident other than one right now. You have another one?
It's been suggested that all of the attention earlier in the fall led the gangs to leave those complexes. Do you think that happened and they came back, or do you think they never left? What can you say about that?
Again, it's an evaluation. I think that we have definitely had an impact about what our enforcement strategies have been there. We have seen a decrease in call loads. We have seen a decrease in criminal activity. We have focused on that area extensively. We have the statistics and the numbers that validate the arrests that have been made there. I do believe that many of them fled. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee you that the individuals that were involved in that initial video that went throughout the nation, they fled, obviously, because some of them were taken into custody. I think others had fled. But again, we're not talking about a small group of individuals here. We're talking about possibly 40,000 to 35,000 Venezuelans that were brought to the city of Aurora and dropped into it. And again, you're basically talking about a small city that was dropped into a large city. And again, I go back to what I said. That system happened without any support, without any infrastructure, or without any knowledge or very little knowledge to the community of Aurora and the Aurora Police Department. And again, that is an example of a system that was fouled from the very beginning. So we are playing without question catch up on trying to ensure that we hold those that victimize others accountable. But I want to be very clear, what we are not going to do is over-enforce or over-police to the people that are not involved in criminal activity. And that is really the fine line to do, is to identify individuals that are involved in crime, that are involved in victimization, hold them accountable without mistreating or over-policing or victimizing, again, an entire community that is just trying to get along in a country that they have absolutely no idea about, no understanding about, and there is nobody from the federal government giving them any direction or any support on how to succeed, how to live, how to make it day by day. So again, that is something that we are contending with. But I do think a lot of them left. I think that there's a constant influx, but again, we're not talking about a small number of individuals. We're not talking about a busload of people that got moved in here. We're talking about an entire small city that got put into a large city. And those complexities go far beyond the discussion that we're talking. Can we say they're all gone or are they all here? No, we can't do that.
So Chief, what kind of patrols were made at that complex? I mean, you listed many arrests.
Yeah, the patrols have been nonstop. Again, I will talk over the past 3-4 months. We have made this one of our items of attention. We have made this a hotspot location, obviously, based upon the crime and the calls for service there. And that's why I can give you the statistics about the fact that we have seen a drop in calls for service from both the community as well as a number of initiated stops by our officers. We have seen both of those goes up. And also, when I look at the significance of arrests, again, I want to just give you an idea of what we've been focused on. So on 11/20, our DOT officers went to the location and they arrested 2 suspects for $50,000 warrants. They arrested additional 2 suspects at 1200 Dallas for traffic fines, warrants, and additional charges to make sure they were held accountable. On 12/3, with dangerous offensive warrants, and also MCUD were working on that. On 12/10, on 1208 Dallas, again, the location we're talking about, PAR officers, which is again our public or our outreach officers, they worked with receivership company, and they took into custody 2 outstanding warrant suspects. And this involved a double homicide that occurred in New York. And again, this is the stuff that's not reported, but this is the stuff that's nonstop. On 12/13, our PAR officers again made a person of interest arrest and a contact with an individual that was involved in a homicide with an active drug warrant. So our enforcement has not stopped there. The fact that there is still crime there, again, like I said, we have hundreds and hundreds of apartment complexes in the city of Aurora. This is one that without question is problematic. Again, it doesn't matter if you're talking New York, if you're talking Atlanta, if you're talking Los Angeles, there are known locations that are infested with gang activity in other cities. This is that location for the city of Aurora. This is the location that is infested. This is a location that has been identified. This is a location that is continually being addressed not only by law enforcement, but also from the city as far as what we can look at from a civil direction to try to close down these apartment complexes or rechange or modify it or hold it in a criminal nuisance stance. So again, the enforcement, the oversight, the review, it has not stopped. It has been a process.
Chief, you said there was a search warrant
Right here,
going
ma'am.
on, right? All morning long we were out there. We actually saw 2 other people leave in handcuffs. Are you guys still bringing in more people being detained or arrested during those search warrants?
Yes.
How many more?
As many as we have to determine if they were involved or not involved.
In this specific situation or just in gang
In this situation, for sure, we're going to focus on that. But during these search warrants, if we find individuals, again, and we can determine that there is probable cause to hold them and arrest them for any offense, they will be arrested.
Okay, and everybody's been arrested, not just detained, right? Correct?
Well, again, the 15 that we originally got out of the apartment, again, we don't have positive identification based upon the fact that our victims are still in the hospital.
Okay.
Once that is determined, again, there'll be a whole process of investigation that will involve. There'll be a process of making up a 6-pack, which again, there'll be photos of the different individuals and having them be unidentified. So the ones we do have in custody, we believe that they are involved in it based on the behavior, based upon where they were at, based upon what was seen at the initial contact. But this is going to be an investigation that is ongoing. And like I said, and like you brought up, because you're right. Again, we are writing warrants on 4 separate locations within that complex. If we go into that complex and we find contraband, if we find weapons, if we find evidence of crime, if we find individuals that have warrants, we are going to arrest them.
Okay. Last thing, was there a shooting involved in all of this last night? Because the neighbor across the street, he told us on camera, 8 gunshots heard between 2 different guns. Do you guys have any reports of that?
We don't have any reports. As a matter of fact, I pulled up all our call load last night, and the only call that we got was the call based upon this initial incident.
What were the ages of the victims?
I don't have that right now. I'm sorry.
Chief, of these people you haven't identified yet, what is their status? Are
Yeah, they're all detained right now, and the investigation is ongoing. It's like I said, we are working with our federal partners to make sure that they are identified, making sure that we can verify who they are, what affiliations they have, what gang affiliations they have. And again, we will make the determination on what happens with them as the investigation unfolds. But right now, everybody is being detained.
How are you guys keeping the victims safe? Because they told them they weren't gonna call the police, and then they did.
Yeah, and I thank you for that question, because I want everybody in the community to understand this. We will ensure the safety of a victim, and that's what we're going to do. If we have to relocate, if we have to move, we will ensure their safety. One thing again, and I hope Spanish-speaking television is out here, we just had a meeting 2 days ago with the ethnic community in regards to communications and media, and that's one thing I stress to them, is that I don't want somebody to be victimized over and over. I don't want somebody to be victimized even once and feel like they can't contact us. We will take whatever steps are necessary to ensure that you are safe, to ensure that you are not re-victimized. We will do our best in that process. So again, don't let your documentation status, whether you're documented or undocumented, be the obstacle to you stepping forward and letting us know, because again, would have happened, which it did happen last night. If this would have taken place and they would have been too intimidated to call us, which I said, a lot of gangs will focus on the same race, the same ethnicity. Doesn't matter if they're black gangs, Hispanic gangs, white gangs. It doesn't make a difference. They focus on an easy target, manipulate and coerce. If these people would not have had courage to come forward and say, hey, we were victimized, we would have never have known about this, ever. And these guys would have been able to go and do it again, and these women would have been able to victimize someone else, which I'm sure they have in the past, and I'm sure they're doing it would have done it in the future. So the courage that those did is, I can't thank them enough. We took people that have the highest propensity of hurting somebody else out of the system, and we put them in custody. So I again, thank you for that question.
Chief, it seems
Yes,
like
ma'am.
the strategy-
Chief, can you talk about what you found through some of those search warrants so far?
Yeah, the search warrants are still ongoing. I don't know if we've even got them signed yet. They are. I was able to read the search warrants, but they still have to go through the court process and be signed. But the apartments are all basically held. We have cleared all the apartments to know that no one else is inside those. So now we are basically looking for elements of the crime. This is part of the investigation component. We are looking for elements of the crime, or are we looking for any contraband or anything else that we need to be aware of?
Chief, it seems like the strategy has been to shut down the apartments. Can you push back on that, or say exactly what will closing down this apartment complex do? Then that just move them to another location?
It's definitely a strategy, because again, the problem is so complex in that particular complex that I think it has to be broken up. And again, when I said you go back to the beginning of this, how did that complex get that way? Well, one, it was in poor management, poor ownership. Basically, the people that immigrated to the city of Aurora and were dropped off in a place that was already problematic. They were put there for a very specific reason, which caused the problem to get even more intense. Again, there was no real setup as far as who was going to control it, who was going to facilitate rents, who was going to facilitate how these people lived or what they did. And so basically the place fell into complete unmanagement, complete shambles. With that, we started to see people come and go out of the location. Vacant apartments, these individuals were actually taken to a vacant apartment last night where they were mistreated. And that's what you see in there. And so again, shutting down this and almost starting fresh is an incredibly important part. But it's not one-dimensional in any stretch of the imagination. This is a multifaceted approach that the city of Aurora, that the Aurora Police Department has focused on, to look at it not only from the civil issues related to it, but also the enforcement issues related to it. The fact that there are bad individuals in there, the fact that there are gangs in there, the fact that people are being hurt and mistreated, the fact that it has really changed the dynamics of that entire neighborhood. To be very open with you, it's changed the dynamics of that neighborhood. And we aren't going to tolerate it anymore. I don't know what happened in the past. Again, the past is the past, but I can tell you from what we are doing now, we have set a course of proactive law enforcement to hold those accountable, to make sure that they don't victimize other people. This is going on simultaneously with the city at their approach of looking at the facilities, looking at the locations. And again, the partnership when these people move and relocate and go to different places, again, not all of these are bad people. It's like I said, they are in a, and I've been there. It's squalor. It's not a great place to be. I've knocked on the doors and I've talked to people that live there, and they live on a mattress on the floor. It's deplorable. There's nobody in this room that would live like that right now. There's no. And yes, that's what these families and these people have been given and said, hey, good luck. Well, that's a problem. It's a problem, and I think we see what that ramification and what the results of that situation are, and that's what we're addressing right now.
And Chief, how does APD respond when you guys, meet two victims, hey, 15 people kidnapped and tortured us? What kind of response does it come into play when you're sending officers over there? Because that building is essentially dangerous.
Yeah, it is, but that's what law enforcement does. They have to deal with dangerous situations. And so again, it was almost simultaneously as the time our officers were interviewing the victims at one location. Other officers prepared for that. They came up with a plan with it. They actually brought the correct logistics and equipment that they needed to make sure that they would be safe in that environment. But I want to let you know, it's not just tonight's event that was dangerous. Our officers have been in those complexes nonstop, and they've been in there every day almost. And again, I have the statistics and the recap to demonstrate that. And that is what our job is. And so it's not, we're never going to say that it's so unsafe that law enforcement can't go there. There is never going to be a no zone, no law enforcement zone in the city of Aurora as long as I'm chief of police. We are going to go where we need to go. We are going to go in the direction we need to go to make sure that all areas are safe. Not all areas are the same. Again, we have a gang problem in Aurora, without question. We have 25 some gangs like every major city does. We have a number of gang members. And it's not just up in that area. It's not just in that complex. It's throughout the entire city of Aurora. The same as you have gangs in the city of Denver. The same as you have gangs in Los Angeles and New York. But our job is to identify those gang members, is to focus on their activities and to hold them accountable. And that's exactly what we're doing with this and with this location.
We've had city council members within Aurora who've been outspoken about the TDA gang, like, Durinsky, who's here right now, but we've had, Governor Polis and the mayor in Denver right next door saying, hey, this is not an issue. What's your response to that type of situation?
No, it's a definite issue. I think it's an issue. I think the mere fact that you're here, the mere fact that we're talking about a location that, I don't know how many months ago, 7 months ago, 8 months ago, or whatever, was on national news, and we're still talking about the same subject, it is 100% an issue. And again, whether it's TDA, whether it's Rolling 60s, whether it's the 30s, whether it's any other gang that's around here, again, that's the problem. But the big problem is the fact that there's people that are being hurt and victimized. That's what we are truly focusing on, not just their gang affiliation, but we're focusing on the fact of the individuals that are hurting and mistreating other people. That is the focus.
Chief, there's going to be a new president in a few weeks. Do you have a message for him about what you'd like to see from his administration on this issue?
Well, again, this is not a political discussion, and law enforcement is apolitical. But I was very clear on what I saw as a law enforcement practitioner. And how these individuals were brought into this country and the complete disregard for how they were treated as human beings once they got here, and the impact that resonated not only to this complex and to those individuals, but an entire community, if not an entire nation. So what I hope for is I hope that it's more strategic. I hope that individuals that seek a better place in this country, that hope for a better life, I hope it's more strategically planned. I hope they come with systems to support what they need here, the ability to work here, the ability to live life here, like we all live, in a much better way than what occurred. And that's what I hope for. And also, I will be very, very open about it. Again, I am not going to step away from not using federal resources to focus and to take those individuals into custody that are victimizing other people. And again, whether that's DHS, whether that's ICE, whether that's HSI, I don't care. It is not about their documentation status. It is not about whether they are documented or undocumented. It's about the fact that they are causing crime, they are victimizing people, and they are going to be held accountable. And I am going to use whatever resource is available, and I am going to support that.
So Chief, this has been going on, you mentioned it, for 7 months. What responsibility does Aurora Police Department and city leaders bear?
Again, when you look at the complexity of gangs, when you look at the complexity of crime, when you look at the complexity of this being a major city, that's something that, again, I think that all of us take the responsibility. It's something that, again, the fact that I can articulate out these recap numbers or the statistics of what we've done or how many calls for service there have been, or the fact that in city board meetings, again, the conversation has been about how can these complexes be addressed? How can they go through a civil process to get better ownership, to get better systems put in place? So again, I think the city, we understand what our role is in this. We also understand that we're dealing with some incredibly complex situations and things that every city is dealing with. And again, when this is occurring, you're right, it's occurring and it's incredibly bad, but this isn't the only thing that's occurring. There's things occurring all over the city that the Aurora Police Department is continually monitoring, continually responding to, and continually addressing. Again, last year as an example, we basically responded to about 210,000 calls for service. And that doesn't happen in a vacuum. That takes time, it takes resources, it takes personnel, it takes attention away from things that we would love to focus on because we have to go to calls for service to treat people that, again, they can't handle the situation and so they call law enforcement. So the complexities is not about pointing fingers and saying you're to blame or you're to blame. We know what the problem is. And we as a group, as a holistic group of the city, of the community, and of this police department are focused on trying to resolve this as quickly as possible.
Chief,
Chief, how many-
with the situation, how,
I'm sorry, sir?
So how many calls of service have you had in that area? I know you talked about November and December, but how many calls have you had?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't bring the paperwork, but basically from what I recall, it was somewhere right around the area of 200 some, approximately that. And about 60 of those were officer initiated calls. And so we're looking at a number. We've seen a decrease over the past month. December has been our lowest month on calls for service.
So why would people living around that area, why should they feel confident of continuing to live there and continue to feel safe?
Well, the one thing I will say is we are aware of the problem. We are not shying away from the problem. We are owning the problem, and we are going to fix the problem. And it is not going to be an easy situation. Again, there's communities that you can go throughout the United States in any major city, and you can say, oh, this problem has always been a location. This low-income housing project, or this project here, or this particular street is an area that you don't ever want to go down. This is nothing new to the city of, or the United States. It's nothing new even to the city of Aurora. It's a problem. It's a national problem because of the attention drawn to it and the victimization that's been connected to it and the political issue that's been connected to it. But these are issues that we face every single day. And to the community, again, I just ask for your continued support. I ask for your continued communication. We have constantly and consistent meetings with community members. And again, I hear the pain in their voice. And this is without question. I'm not going to try to say, oh, it's just this one area and then the rest of the area is great, because it's not. There is a lot of problems. There is a lot of crime. There's a lot of issues. If you look up a little bit north of that, there's issues. But again, this is not problematic as for the entire city of Aurora. This is not an example that the city of Aurora is a gang-infested, drug-infested, crime-infested area. There is still a lot of positive things for the city of Aurora. There are definitely pockets that are problematic. And again, that is where we are doing everything in our possibility to address those and to count those and to fix those.
and back to what happened last night and early this morning, was there any pushback bringing these suspects out of the apartment complex when police arrived?
No, there wasn't. No, our officers actually made contact with all of them, detained all of them, and then had them all pulled out of the apartments.
Are they in county jail or are they here in the detention?
Right now, they're still being investigated. So we're, like I said, this is still very, very cursory. It's very, very unfolding as we talk. And so we are still trying to determine because again, I'm not going to arrest somebody or do something to somebody that was not involved in this. I'm not going to do a knee jerk on this. And that's one thing I want to let everybody know. I'm not going to, oh, this is such a, an eventful thing, and this is such a thing that it's going to get national news that, hey, we got to do something. That's not how this law enforcement agency is going to work. I am going to make sure that we do our due diligence. I'm going to make sure that we hold all of those accountable, but it's going to be done properly. It's going to be done within the Constitution of the United States. It's going to be done within the state laws and the city laws, and it's going to be done ethically and morally. What I'm not going to do is do a panic and just start arresting everybody and saying these are the people. And again, that causes more problems than actually identifying the individuals that are involved. So this investigation is going to be ongoing until we determine 100% that these are the individuals involved. We have probable cause to detain, we have probable cause to arrest, and they are going to go through the process.
Has the lockdown been lifted?
We're still holding it because, again, we want to go through those 4 apartment
And what
complexes.
does that mean? That are residents able to come and
Yes,
go?
they can.
Okay.
They can. I'm sorry, who?
Pretty fired up right now.
I'm not fired up. Again, I don't like the reason I'm in law enforcement, and the reason all these officers are in law enforcement is because we don't want to see people get victimized, is because we want to serve. And so again, to see the amount of time, the amount of effort, the amount of energy that we have put into trying to make this a safe area, trying to make it better for the people that live there, every person that lives there, and to see this event almost re-unfold again, it does. It upsets me. It upsets me that somebody was hurt last night. It upsets me that someone couldn't walk out into their parking structure without getting taken and accosted and pulled into an apartment and misused and abused and beat. So am I fired up? Yeah, I'm fired up. something is seriously wrong, and we are going to try to fix it as best we can, and we have been.
So the victims have to identify the suspects, correct, once they leave the hospital?
There's other ways we're going to work on it too. There's based upon swabs, if there's weapons involved, again, what their status is, if they have criminal histories, if they have warrants. But yes, we are going to make sure that they're identified. But there's many other things that we're going to focus on too. If we can build reasonable suspicion that they were involved in it, again, based on the trauma of our victims, that's something that we're going to have to navigate and work through.
And if they weren't involved in any way, will they be released back to the community?
Yeah, and that's something I'm not sure right now. We're still unfolding with that. It's going to be based upon, again, what they have, what their criminal histories are, what impact they had. Are they involved in criminal activity? That's still going to unfold.
You spoke a lot, but there's a lot of different things that are going on, but from a solution standpoint, because look at 5 years, a decade down the road, what do you want to see from this area? What's the way that you're going to get to that final resolution of this area?
Well, I hope this area, like a lot of problematic areas throughout the United States, I hope it changes. I hope you see prosperous area. I hope you see an area that is safe for the families, that's safe for the community, that they feel comfortable in. Again, that's what I hope for. Is that the reality all the time? No, it's not. There's areas in Los Angeles where, again, I talked about them 35 years ago, and they're still incredibly problematic. There's areas in New York I could reach out to somebody and they could say, hey, this area really hasn't changed, it's still problematic. But that doesn't mean we stop, and we are not going to stop. We are going to continue to focus, because the ultimate goal is to make it to where someone doesn't victimize somebody else. Obviously, we can't control that. Again, the victimization that occurs, what occurred last night, what even occurred last week. We had a homicide last week where a husband shot his wife and his baby, his 1-year-old baby. We can't control that. That's the actions of the individuals. But what we can do is make sure that we do our best to identify those issues, identify the problems, and focus on those, and put every tool and every resource, and we do it with the community. And that's one thing that we have not stopped doing. We have constantly worked with the community. We've constantly reached out to the community. I know their frustration. I live in Aurora. I know their frustration. And we are going to do our best to address it. And again, I don't think anything is going to be a quick fix. Nothing's going to occur overnight. But we never stop fighting this fight. We never give up, and we won't.
You
Chief,
talked
what
about
advice does the police department give to apartment owners like this? What should they be doing to address these issues?
Well, again, I think you're talking about different individuals, because the apartments and the ownership on this one were very remiss in their activities as far as how they handled this location, how they managed it, or should I say how they mismanaged this location. So again, I think for apartment owners as a whole, and like I said, there are hundreds of apartment complexes in Aurora. And I think management is incredibly important in regards to how those are maintained and what is allowed to occur and what's not allowed to occur. And unfortunately for these complexes, there was too much that was allowed to occur. There was mismanagement, there was lack of oversight, there was terrible conditions that were put into place, living conditions that people did. And again, I think out of that desperation, again, you have a lot of desperate acts. And so for other apartment owners, for other managers, again, I hope it's good stewardship. I hope that they treat the people that rent from them with respect, with dignity, with kindness. I hope that they set up systems that support that living function, because that was not the place in these complexes, and it's not right now either. It's still problematic.
You talked about the arrest that happened earlier this month of 2 people for a homicide that happened in New York. Obviously, they came back to Aurora. Why is Aurora a hotspot for these people to be living?
Well, again, I don't really know that. I know, like I said, I think it's because you have people that are new to the country. This is an area where, for whatever reason, it was decided that they were going to drop off a huge immigrant population, which is fine, because I think you all know that Aurora is an incredibly, incredibly diverse community, without question. And there is more diversity in this community than I've seen, or in this city than I've seen in a lot of other cities. But and so I think that they feel comfortable assimilating where they originally from, where they have people that they probably connect with, where they might have family members. I don't know what that pattern is, but all I know is that we basically have a small city that was dropped into a larger city. And I think, again, when you look at the issues going on across the nation with the immigration issues and things, it's where they were placed, it's where they were dropped into, and how well they assimilate and how well they adapt to it, again, which is the goal, which is what you hope for. But unfortunately, I think, and I'll go back to what I said, the systems that were in place when these people first came here was not a system that was productive. It was not a system that supported them, and it wasn't a system that supported this city. And with that, I'd just like to thank you. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the opportunity that you will get this out to the community. And I just want to close with this. I just want to say again, Aurora Police Department, we will not stop until we hold all these individuals accountable. I will assure you of that. We will do our best to ensure that no future victims at this level. But again, that's a promise that I can't 100% keep. I think it would be naive to say, oh, we're not going to have any other victims that are immigrants being treated this way. That's something that can't be stated, but we're going to do our best to make sure that that doesn't happen. I ask for the community's help. Again, had those victims not stepped forward and called us, none of this would have been going on right now. We would have thought it was just another great day. It wasn't a great day, and it wasn't a great day for them. So again, their courage, I just want to sound that one more time and say thank you to them. And to anybody else that's being victimized in the immigrant community or anywhere else, please do not hesitate to reach out to law enforcement because we are here to support you. And so thank you very much, and I appreciate your time.